The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. It's time for the Guillotine Grapevine, a podcast for the land of 10,000 wrestlers. 10,000 wrestlers. Now, here's your host, award-winning wrestling broadcast journalist, Jason Bryant.
The Guillotine Grapevine on location, Daytona Beach, Florida, as part of the NWCA Wrestling Coaches Convention. Of course, that's kind of redundant because the NWCA means National Wrestling Coaches Association Wrestling Coaches Convention. Anyway, Manny Rivera, our guest, head coach at CSU Bakersfield and a Minnesota Golden Gopher alum. Manny, what's up, man?
How you doing?
Meep, meep.
Beep, beep, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing this. Do you go beep or do you go meep?
I go with the beep, beep, beep.
I like the meep. Meep, meep.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right, so you've got two types of ferocious small animals, a gopher and a roadrunner. Why are they fierce in their own way?
Let me see. I'll start with the roadrunner. You can YouTube a roadrunner killing a snake. I'm pretty sure it smashes its head wide open. So you can just go to YouTube to get a clear visual of why it's ferocious. Kind
of like pelicans. They're like misunderstood. They're ferocious. There's a YouTube video I said Kevin Jackson about, man, when they changed the New Orleans mascot to the Pelicans. Nah, man, pelicans are awesome. It's on Deadspin. I can't say the name of the video because there's an F-bomb in there, but yeah, so that's a good one.
Yeah, and gophers, I mean, would you ever...
Goldie can spin his whole head around.
Yes, he can do that. So that's, yeah, I mean, well, Goldie's possessed, it looks like. His head spins like he needs an exorcism, but I don't know. Would you ever stick your hand inside a gopher hole?
No.
Yeah. You don't want to get your hand bitten off?
It's like land noodling.
Yeah.
There's no point doing that. Anyway, so, man, you've been out in Bakersfield now, and you got leading your own program. You're a California native. You get to go back home, air quotes, because it's not like next door, but I mean, close enough. It's home. What's it like been leading your own program?
It's been great. Been fun. Definitely a lot of challenges, a lot of work, but, there's nothing like being able to lead a program, build something, try and do something special. So it's been very enjoyable.
And you've had, a bit of a circuitous route to landing back in California. Spent some time on the East Coast, spent some time in that glorious city of Fargo, don't you know? And, what was it like learning at those spots after leaving the University of Minnesota?
Yeah, every place is unique, and everyone I coached with or under, had, fortunately various different strengths. And, I've said this before, but, I learned a lot of recruiting from Steve Garland over at Virginia. And the style of wrestlings are different everywhere you go. So the wrestling was different out there. So I got to add that to just my knowledge, and went back up to North Dakota, and, it's a little more aligned to your Midwestern type of wrestling. But, at North Dakota State, I got to take on a lot of responsibility. So, I mean, just learned a lot by being able to do a lot of things. So, it's been good journey. I'm glad to be back in California. Like I said, not quite home, but close enough. I grew up, really, knowing about a lot of all these, Cal State Bakersfield greats. So.
Yeah, but now you can't say Cal State Bakersfield. It's CSU Bakersfield.
Yeah, it's funny because it is. I hope no one from school hears it because they'll probably get mad at me. But in the wrestling world, everyone still knows it's Cal State.
Because they're looking at the old saying of Stephen Neal. It said Cal State, but it was how do you get Bakersfield in front of a saying? The old school saying. Now it's Sublimation Easy. But one thing I want to go back on, and as I'm looking up, it was 2 years ago that you made your appearance. You got named the coach. You're leaving Fargo. We were actually and in Fargo at your going away party at whatever that restaurant was. I can't remember the name of it.
The Empire.
No, the other place. This was that. That's man. The seedy place. No, the place with the 900 beers on tap. I think it was. It was like Sidecar. Or something
Side
like
Street.
It. Yeah, something like that. And I was like, oh wow. Well, and you're already wearing the blue and the gold. It's like usually those colors don't really fare well in Fargo because of the other blue and gold team down the road in Brookings. But when you look back and said, okay, coming out of high school, did you ever think? I mean, who thinks that they're going to be a head Division I college coach in their home state when you really weren't on a whole lot of people's radar coming out of high school until that senior nationals.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I guess I hadn't thought about it till you said it out loud right now, but yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to even think. Like I probably didn't even know I was going to end up in Minnesota, right? And probably didn't even realize I was going to wrestle right at a 4-year, especially a school like Minnesota, right away. I was more or less thinking I'd go to a junior college and then figure it out from there. But yeah, I mean, just kind of stay the course. And, luckily I got recruited out to Minnesota, and, I loved my time there, and, led me to my opportunity to stay there and help out for a couple of years before I moved on. And then once I got into coaching and really started taking it serious, it was definitely something that I wanted to do. It was on my radar to be a head coach. And then obviously to do it back in California, where I'm from, I knew was definitely a goal of mine. So
when that senior nationals, we've talked about it because you beat one of my buddies, Brandon Hardy from Virginia. And that was the ones like, who the heck is this guy? Didn't even win states in California. So, and for those who are unfamiliar in Minnesota, California has a junior college system that competes in the fall. A lot of it's almost based on almost like a school district type of thing. You're probably going to wrestle at the junior college that you're really heavily close to. There's not a lot of recruiting that crosses county and city lines in that respect. But when does J-Rob, when does the staff start noticing you? Is it after NHSCA's or is it after the California State Tournament?
No, it was literally right after the finals, pretty much. I know they were around probably and probably watched me wrestle a little bit before that, but Mark Schwab was there, and that's who came down, and he said hi, and he's like, I forget exactly what he said, but basically, let's get you on a visit and all that good stuff. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And
so were they still in Pittsburgh then, or were they Cleveland?
Cleveland.
Okay, yeah, because before they moved to Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Hardy was going to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And it was a big thing. And you told me a story last time we were actually talking about this, is like the guy that won the state title at your weight class, and then explain that situation. I was like, you outplaced him at seniors, right? Yeah.
So it was interesting because I took third in the state. The two guys that placed ahead of me in the state, one beat me in the semis, the other one beat him. They were both ranked like 1 and 2 in the country. So like I knew I can do well out at high school nationals, but I thought I could win the tournament, but obviously there was nothing to support that. I didn't wrestle much nationally, but I just knew I had a couple tough guys. So it was Gabe Flores beat me in the semis at the state. He went and wrestled for Illinois. But then I wrestled him in the semis of the high school nationals and beat him there. And then actually Nathan Morgan, who wrestled for Oklahoma State.
Bakersfield kid.
Yeah, Bakersfield kid. Was a junior, so he wasn't even there. He won the state. So it's crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot it was Gabe Flores. It's just and then there's, oh man, that's such an error.
And Gabe Flores now coaches Buchanan state championship team.
It's great. And that's the thing. Like in Minnesota, we have very good high school wrestling here. I'm from a state that is now basically bastardized its state tournament with 6 public school classes and a 7th private school. Minnesota, people still don't like the 3-class system in Minnesota, but even the 3 classes in Minnesota, you get these small school guys that come out of nowhere and just like they're D1 ready too.
Yeah.
Coming out of one state tournament in California. How tough is it to just get to the state tournament there?
Yeah, it's a grind. Like, if you're one of the better kids in the state, you still cruise to it, but that's a lot of matches you're putting in back to back.
Aren't you going to do like sections, Matt? Like if you're in the southern part of the state, you have to win like 16 matches to get there.
Yeah, so let me see if I can, and maybe things have changed a little bit, but not much. Like, so you start out at your league tournament, that's about maybe 5 to 7 teams, and it take top 3 go to your CIF, which is your subsection. CIF is a 32-man bracket 2-day tournament, and your top 6 go to Masters, and that's your section. And then your Masters, another 32-man bracket 2 days. Top 9, I believe now, go to the state. So you got to run through a couple grinders to get to the state. I mean, then you get there and it's a 40-man tournament over 2 days. So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's definitely, it's hard to argue that it's not the hardest state tournament to win.
Yeah, it is hard. That or New Jersey also is one state class tournament. Indiana does. Indiana's good tradition. I think New Jersey and California used to kind of carry the banner for the one class. Now, when we go to Minnesota, Mac Ryder always talks. You and Mac are talking about it. Well, wait. That's my spot. You guys are both coming in, and what was it like, the relationship with Mac? And then you end up going 41, and he has to work through an injury. I mean, the dynamic with Mac, he seems to get along with everybody as a jovial personality. But what was that dynamic like with?
It was great. Really, I actually thought I would end up being bigger than where I ended up. I thought I was gonna grow. My brothers are way bigger than me, so I was like, I'll probably grow to the size of my brother. So I never thought we'd ever end up at the same weight, but we ended up being pretty close. And then actually we were both at 33. our first year. So he actually beat me at like the Bison Open and, won the spot outright. But then I grew a little bit after that. Then we split apart. But it was great, to be quite honest. I wrestled him. He was the toughest match of the tournament at that high school nationals. I wrestled him early. And I didn't know he was signed, committed to go to Minnesota. So, and none of that was on my radar. Like I said, I was looking at a junior college.
He was such a wrestling nerd that he knew everything. He knew these national rank guys. Like, wait, you didn't know what was going on this way. He knew everything that was going on the other way. So just to hear the dynamics, it's hilarious.
Yeah. It was crazy. I knew he was good. On results.
Cradles.
Yeah, like
Cradles for days.
You kind of see some guys like, I think it used to say how many state titles they'd won. Like that's all you would get, like the state they were from. Back then there wasn't much info on guys. So it's like, I think somehow, maybe it was my coach, this guy's a 4-time state champ, and he saw he had a couple, and my coach told me this, and I was like, didn't mean much to me back then, but he's like, he's already got a couple pins pretty quick, and he actually said he either has a throw or a cradle, so watch out. That's all he told me. So, and that was just a straight guess from my high school coach.
Now, when you start to acclimate from California to Minnesota, what's that first winter like for you?
You know what? It's cold and it wasn't great. It wasn't fun, but like I get that asked a lot, and I was so
freaking cold. Let's not sugarcoat it, man.
Yeah,
come on.
But like that first year, like I was so worried about like not getting my butt kicked in practice, and I was worried about getting to class and doing all that it was almost like way down the line of things I was worried about. So yeah, would I have preferred some more sunshine? Sure, but it was all right.
When you go through and you've made the spot, you go to nationals the first year, you're not seeded. What was your expectation? Just get there. I mean, obviously when you wrestle for Minnesota, there's an expectation of winning, but what explain 2006.
I was there to play, so I wanted to be an All-American. We had beat Oklahoma State twice that year in dual meets, and we were kind of 1-2 that whole year. And, I think we had maybe the top ranking going in, but they had a good tournament team. So I knew for me to give my team a chance to win an NCAA championship, I had a place, and that was my goal. I want to be an All-American. I want to help the team win a national championship. And, I only won one match. I drew Tion Ware first round, so that wasn't fun, but, and then I won a match, I forget against who, might have been Oregon State, I don't know his name, and then lost to Citadel. I forget their names, but yeah. So it was disappointing. The only silver lining out of that experience was I did wrestle Tion Ware to a fairly tight match and was competitive with them. So I was like, okay, I know I can wrestle with the best guys. So that was about the best thing I could take away from that.
Auburn Hills, you're the 4th seed. You make the quarters. A guy named Don Fish from Ryder is coming out of the CAA. We knew how good he was in the CAA, and comes through, makes the semis, beats you in the quarterfinals, drops you down to the blood round where you catch Brandon Rader coming through. Lose that one 9-5.
Yeah.
The blood round, the round of 12 loss. How, I guess, gut wrenching is that moment as an athlete?
That was a bittersweet weekend in that we won a team championship. But obviously I was there to be a national champion, especially that year. I had a great year. I was really I was so confident. I was convinced I was going to be a national champion. So, it was tough. It was tough tough pill to swallow, but obviously it was great to be able to celebrate with all my team. And the older I get, the more I coach, especially, I realize how special a team title is. It's so hard to win.
Oh, yeah, 12 teams. Only 12 teams have ever done it. So,
yeah, so I get to appreciate that more and more. The older I get, the more I coach. So at the time, I was completely bummed out. I didn't accomplish my own things, but, bittersweet. It's the best way to put it.
How much do you pay attention to other things around you at that tournament? Because there's a couple things that are, to me, relevant to you being in California. One of them was Derek Moore. Mm-hmm. Never a state champ, California. Text Ryan Lang, a Big Ten guy, you strapped with, text him in the final, gives up the first takedown, and then scores 17 straight. How aware are you of those type of things?
Very. me and Derek maybe wrestled a couple times growing up, but yeah, I mean, I knew who Derek was. I knew he was good, and I mean, I was probably surprised at how bad he beat him, but I wasn't surprised that he could beat him. So yeah, I mean, a guy like probably similar. That
was a bludgeoning, dude. That was like one of the biggest ass whippings I've ever
remember
seen
the match. Yeah, Lang came out, took him down, got reversed, and that was it. That was over.
Yeah, and the other second thing I remember that is hearing Derek's mom throughout the arena. You could hear her no matter what. Secondly, Cole Conrad just ball in the finals, caps his career. I mean, what was it like to be teammates with that guy?
Awesome. I mean, he's really one of the best heavyweights. I mean, ever. One of the best heavyweights ever. A great teammate. You know, it was just like the comfort of knowing that if we were ever in a close duel, we had Cole to close it off. Was just, you know, you never even worried. Was
that comfort made even more comfortable after he you know, that near the national duels when he pinned Steve Mocco, and like basically it was like the returning national champ, and I'm in Virginia at the Virginia duels and I'm watching the stream on live sports video, and Pat Tossi is there with the NWCA, and we're using instant messenger back in the day. I'm like at ODU Wildman, and even before they used @ signs, and he goes, "Holy crap, did you see that?" I'm like, and like 30 seconds later, here it comes. I'm like, Conrad just pinned Mocco. What was that moment like? That's what I want to know.
That's the best duel I've ever wrestled in. Like, it was the craziest duel. It was so much fun. You know, I forget what their streak was coming in. They were clearly the best team coming back. And, you know, obviously not just that storyline, the team won, but Mocco coming, you know, his win streak was something crazy and had beat Cole in the finals the year before. So it was just like, it was insane. But yeah, I mean, Cole pins him. I just remember everyone going crazy. I think Joe Russell was like throwing chairs around, throwing them up in the air. I don't know what he was doing, but yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, speaking of Joe Russell, that's one thing when he was at George Mason, and you know, he got a chance to run his program, and which was one of the chief rivals of where I went to college. And you know, the only thing I like about George Mason is its wrestling program. So I can't play my my alumni strikes at them. But he was telling me that when he was the head coach, he goes, man, it's a lot different than the University of Minnesota. It's a lot different, like resources and things. Did you have any conversation with Joe when you took over Bakersfield? Like, hey, how did you deal with this? At, you know, a smaller school, not a Power 5. You don't have the resources like at Minnesota. You don't even have the resources like at Virginia. I mean, probably not even the same as North Dakota State. So, you know, what's that like? And then maybe did you reach out to Joe for any advice?
Certainly. You know, I try to keep up with a lot of people I've ever been around that I know can be resourceful for me. So no, I don't know of anything specific, but I'll reach out to Joe. I'll bug him all the time and just like, hey, how's it going? And then just kind of a lot of times just pick his brain about different things. And you know, he's certainly a great resource. And yeah, I mean, it is, you know, for me, it's been nice to get different perspectives, and Joe saw that. Obviously, Minnesota, what Jay did there was amazing, especially by the time I came through. It was such a great, top-notch program. So, you know, you go from there, then you start going to other places, and you're like, man, that's something special there, University of Minnesota wrestling program. So,
moving to your senior year, you end up on the podium. You finally get there. I mean, is that? I'll go through the matches here in a minute, but the overall looking back is like, okay, 7th isn't what people strive for, but was it a relief to finally get it after what happened the year before?
Yeah, you know, same thing. Like the older I get, the more I appreciate being an All-American. But you know, I was certainly focused on being a national champion. That's what I wanted to be. That was my goal. I was confident I could do it. Didn't get there, so it was always a little heartbreaking. And you know, obviously, I'd rather take 7th than not place at all. But you know, there's no real drama to it, which is kind of funny because my blood round match, I won pretty decisively.
Yeah, 12-1 over Chris Druin from Arizona State.
Yeah, and I just remember I went up big right away. I got a couple takedowns, a couple turns, and I think I went up by like 9-10 points or something. And then Joe Russell again just starts yelling, "Don't do anything," the rest of the match.
So, and in that situation where you're up in a blood round situation and you're up big, what does your opponent feel like there? I mean, because Druin eventually was an All-American the next year, but another California guy, go figure. Yeah. And can you feel your opponent break in that situation, or did he break at all?
I mean, I definitely felt once I got a couple takedowns and some turns, like, I knew I had it in the bag and just wrestled smart. Don't go in positions where he can get a big move or anything like that. And, I mean, like I said, there wasn't much drama to it, but I would definitely take a win like that in the blood round any day.
Now, let's go back to your top side, Ross. So you open up as the number 5 seed that year. You beat Torsten Gillespie, who ends up being, he's an All-American for Edinburgh. Then you beat Garrett Scott, a Big Ten guy, but all-world coming out of high school. He's no longer with us, but he was a guy that was, the 12th seed, kind of a freak wrestler. You get past him. And then Nathan Morgan.
Yep.
Were you say, like, freaking California guys, man?
No, I mean, it's just, it's funny, like, cause, and not only that, but that was my quarterfinal match, which I obviously planned on winning. The semifinal would have been Chad Mendez.
Another California guy.
Yeah. So it was funny, just, we kind of all ended up there, just the way the seating worked out, and it was going to be, a couple of California guys in the semifinals, and then for sure one in the finals, which, I have a lot of pride in being from California and that being my home state. At the time, I mean, I wanted to be the guy that beat them all, but it's kind of cool to think that, 3 guys that I grew up wrestling with that made a pretty good splash at the NCAA level.
Yeah, that was a good era for California wrestlers at D1 for sure. Now
well, here I got some more for you. Joe Baker.
Yep, Navy.
Yeah,
2-time All-American.
Yeah, Joe Baker, Derek Moore.
So Baker was Poway, right?
Yep, he was Poway. Who else was right around that time?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at I'm trying not to cheat, but I'm just.
Chris Druin.
Let's see. Let's just go through. This is just in 2008. So let's see. California guys off the top of my head. There's an Old Dominion guy. Just throwing that out there. Joe Baker at 133. And then, the Mendez, Morgan, you at 41 alone. Mm-hmm. Oh, that was also the crazy year at 49 with Metcalf, Bubba, Chirel. Oh, none of those are California guys, but that was crazy weight. Let's see. Zupanzik wrestled at Stanford, but he's from Ohio.
Yeah, no, I came through with some pretty tough guys, and it makes sense when, I don't ever win the state and I go out and win nationals, those guys were pretty good. That's why I wasn't winning the state.
Yeah, Montero came through that era too. So.
Yeah.
Halsey.
Who else? And we had Halsey. We had a couple other guys wrestling at other places, like Gabe Flores at Illinois at 125.
You had the other Flores at Northern Iowa.
Yeah.
Who qualified one year with a 9-21 record.
Yeah. Caleb.
A wild card.
Mm-hmm. Caleb. He coaches with my brother at Mount Sac.
Yeah, he's a scrappy guy. Yeah, he was scrappy.
Who else? Patrick Alexanian was wrestling at Nebraska, 133.
Because he started at Fullerton.
Yep. Dropped their program, and then he went over. So
good Armenian name.
Yeah. So, definitely a lot of California boys at the NCAA level right around that time.
I just finished up an interview with Chris Heilman and Nick Nothern talking about the late Mike Duro and how much he impacted their career. And J-Rob's got a pretty impressive coaching tree. And, he's a California guy too. And when you go wrestle and you're dealing with other coaches, you got Joe Russell, the jovial guy, and then you got some goofy teammates, and then you got some, hulking teammates like Conrad. Then you've got the general, the stern-lipped, old school, just no bull kind of guy, Jay Robinson. What is your first reaction to meeting Jay Robinson?
Well, I met him. Shoot, I don't even know how old I was. I was between 7th and 8th grade. I went to a Jay Robinson camp. And
on name on you've heard how do you go there, because you heard it's I got to go to a J-Rob camp.
So it's weird because I was way too young to be there. So it was a 14-day intensive camp in Edinburgh, and I wasn't even supposed to go. my coach is sending some guys from the high school, which my brothers were on the team, and someone just flaked. Someone from the high school team didn't show up the day they were leaving. And coach just calls my dad and be like, hey, we already paid for this. Like, you want to send Manny? And my dad's like, free camp? See ya. I don't know what I'm really getting into. 2 weeks at an intensive camp. I weigh about 85 pounds. It's just, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, I meet Jay at camp, and I knew him as a camper first, not as a coach. So it's a little different than the relationship we got as a coach and friends now and all that and mentor. But
did he remember you years later?
Well, I kept coming back. I went to J-Rob camps for like 4 or 5 years.
So they did have their eye on you.
Yeah. They did. I mean, they knew who I was. Right. So I think it was natural when they started recruiting me that, there's a lot of familiarity there.
Okay. So does J-Rob's mentality or his, gift of gab change day one of practice versus, the intensive camps? Of course, the intense is going to be there's the intensive drill sergeant, but how much does Jay change from camp counselor to wrestling coach?
It's certainly different. I think it's maybe even a little more different the Jay that was recruiting me than once I got there.
See? Yeah. He always reminds me of like that cartoon gangster when he talks.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, yeah, see? When he's making a point, you just shut up and take it.
Yeah, no, Jay was awesome. I mean, like I said, I get into coaching. I've been coaching for a few years now and been around a lot of different places, and he was like the perfect coach for me. Just the type of personality I had, and I needed someone who was going to be straightforward and keep me in line. So he did that as best he could.
What are some of the things you learned from him that are helping you every day as a wrestling coach?
There's so much. Like, he's so full of wisdom. I mean, that guy can motivate you. He can simplify things for you. He can give you stories. He can give you one simple thing that I always like to use is just getting 1% better every day. And that's something, you hear it a lot now. At least I hear it a lot more. But I first heard that from him. And, that's just simple enough, right? Simple enough mentality. Just come in and get better, even if it's 1%. And everyone could do that.
The situation that ultimately led to Jay's termination at Minnesota. What is your opinion on that? Obviously, there's some, it's old school coach, old school mentality. I mean, guy fighting for his athletes. I mean, it's got to be tough for your former athletes to know that how much he cares about you as an athlete. I mean, what's your perspective on the situation?
100%. I think it's, I look at it, because it's interesting because I became a head coach right as all that was going on. So now I got a little more perspective of being in his position and being in that seat. And I think one thing that would have been very difficult and probably is why he didn't get as much support as he probably should have had is that he looks like he went through 3 different athletic directors that whole period. It was the guy they fired or got rid of, whatever. There was an interim who ended up leaving. Then the new guy comes in and kind of makes
and there's other sports that had some issues there. So
exactly,
where are they going to drop the hammer?
Exactly,
the guy that's been a pain in their ass for 30 years. So
it's interesting. Like I would imagine had there been some stability there, it probably would have benefited him.
Yeah, because I was talking to Gordon Biershank, his son-in-law. He's married to Jay's daughter, and we're at Nationals, and it was the year. I got, let's see, we were announcing who retired that year. Oh, yeah, it was Gary Taylor from Ryder was retiring. And I'd known Gary through years of being in the CAA when Old Dominion was there. And I knew that he coached Chad Walsh, where Hanji was Ryan Wolf's coach. So the last time Gary Taylor's on the mat, I gave him a sign off, kind of like I did with Barry Davis this year when Evan Wick won. Well, Gordon's talking, it's like, yeah, Jay never got that. And that's one thing I think a lot of his former wrestlers really wish that he would have had that opportunity. If there was a way you could send off J-Rob as, thank you for your career, thank you for your service, not just, getting a pink slip. How would you celebrate J-Rob as an athlete and a guy that coached you?
Oh, man. I guess if I'm understanding you right, if we can go back and he was still coaching or now?
Well, he did show up for Legends Day. He did get an introduction at a Gopher home duel a year or so ago. But
I mean, I think in a perfect world he would have gone out like that, right? Something like Coach Taylor or Coach Davis, and had that opportunity for people to really.
For a guy that's given so much to sport, I mean, it's almost like a disservice. We could not treat him like that on his way out.
Yeah, it's unbelievable because you know what? More than anything, I think he's most accomplished as a college coach, but I think what people really, really appreciate him for is his camps. I just went in and did a technique camp for him, so it reminded me a lot of being at camps and just the things that happen. But I mean, you'd be surprised how many people will just come up and tell him that his intensive camp changed their life. So when you say he's given so much to the sport and to people,
it's not lip service.
It's incredible. I mean, I don't know if anyone at the J. Robinson camp office has numbers, but I mean, he's been doing the intensive camp since God knows when. I don't know.
It was late 70s or something.
What was your joke earlier? Who coached Moses?
Yeah.
I think Moses was at the camp.
Moses was in J. Rob's intensive camp with Pat Pecora coaching him. Yeah. So, and then now the question is, so when you go back into camp, was that at River Falls you went back to, or?
No, it was just a technique camp he did up in Seattle. So it's a little bit different than the intensive camps, but it was a J. Rob camp, so it was awesome to get. I was
just curious if anybody, if you had gone to the River Falls since he moved over there, and how weird it would be not to be at the University of Minnesota.
No, I haven't. But you know what? I have a few of my wrestlers doing the intensive camps, and their counselors helping out at J-Rob. So it's awesome to be able to get some of my guys to go help out at his camps, because I work the camps, and I know it's really good for them. So I'm glad that opportunity is there for my guys.
Speaking about Minnesota high school wrestling as we close out, because you've got a wealth of talent and really guys that, because of California's system, are under the radar. You got a good junior college system that, from a state school, you can tap into that more so than you can at a Big Ten school. Now, how often are you going to be recruiting Minnesota guys? Because you've still got those contacts from when you were there, but also from when you were at North Dakota State. How do you get a Minnesota guy to CSU Bakersfield?
To be quite honest,
TJ got a Georgia guy. So it can happen.
Oh, it's happened. I think, just where we're at right now, our scholarships are pretty minimal. It'd be tough, but, if it made sense, if it's a guy at a weight class that we think it could work out, convince a Minnesota boy to come out to California, sunny California. We're right by the beach.
It's warm here. Your dual meets, we can wrestle outdoors in the winter. You know that, right?
Yeah, and that's what I say. I say we're right by the beach, even though we're not right by the beach.
Said alma mater, you say, yeah, we're in Virginia Beach. You're 20 minutes away. You're not on the beach. So anyway, as we wrap up, what's one thing that you loved about the Minnesota wrestling community? Because this show is about Minnesota wrestling. It's a land of 10,000 wrestlers. What is your favorite Minnesota thing that you can either tie to wrestling or just your time there?
Well, shoot, I loved a lot of things about Minnesota, but I'll tell you what. Being a Gopher, wrestling in front of the Minnesota crowd, completely amazing. I used to love running out there and just wrestling. The other thing I realized when I was out there, and I realized it pretty quick, that it's just a great wrestling community, not just for our college program, but all the high school level, the youth level. It's like,
the Storm, top to bottom, from senior level to kids, you're a Storm.
People are very much bought into wrestling out there, that wrestling community, and everyone's in on progressing the state. They see the bigger picture, where I think in California, maybe it's such a big state, it's harder to do that, where you get things a little more pocketed off, and maybe some people over here want to do their own thing, and I feel like Minnesota wrestling community is all on board on just trying to make champions and, develop young talent.
Who is your favorite Gopher teammate? Funniest Gopher teammate? Maybe it's a better question, because favorites are one thing. I want funny. I want somebody that just cracked. I mean, there's a lot of guys that stayed on that team for years that never started. That's
a tough question. You're putting me on the spot there, because
that's what an interview does, Mr. Rivera.
It could have been any guy at any day. Mostly, my roommates were always real fun. I lived with guys like Gabe Dretch, Mitch Kuhlman, Justin Bronson. Who else did I live? Then I ended up living up with Matt Eversid, Nate Matusik. So I had a lot of roommates. Normally my roommates are the guys I was closest with and had a lot of fun with. But yeah.
I haven't heard some of those names in a while.
Yeah, no. a lot of those guys I spent a lot of time. But yeah, I mean, we were always a really close team. So, you know, it was very, very good time to be a Gopher back then. So
a great time to be a Minnesota wrestling fan. That's the theme to the Guillotine. So we'll end with that. Manny, thanks for the time, man.
Yep, thank you.
Support wrestling in the land of 10,000 wrestlers by subscribing to The Guillotine. 9 issues a year for just $20, the best value in Minnesota wrestling. Subscribe at theguillotine.com/subscribe.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.